Welcome back to the Road to National series. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through a deload lower workout, and later on in the video, I'm going to talk to you about managing fatigue and DOMS and CNS fatigue. But first of all, this is me doing my main movement for the week. So it was meant to be some variation of a squat, but I have been working through a knee injury. If you didn't know that already, I mention it pretty regularly in these videos. So I was doing belt squats, which surprisingly felt amazing, and I was able to work up to 100 kilos here, which I was so happy with. I've got my heels slightly elevated on a plate, trying to work on sending my hips back a bit as well, not putting too much pressure on the knees, but they felt fantastic. About 2 weeks ago, I had massively aggravated my knee injury and felt so much pain training and couldn't squat down at all, even under body weight. So doing this is a massive step in the right direction, and I was very pleased with this. So after these belt squats, I then go on to do GHDs, then quad extensions, and I'm able to do proper quad extensions again with my knee. I built up to 120-pound quad extensions for sets of 12, which is about my normal working weight. That's good for me. So the knee pain wasn't a limiting factor, and I didn't have to do isometrics like I've been doing a lot recently to manage that knee pain. So that was fantastic and another huge positive. And also at the time of recording this, it's a few days after the training session and I don't have any pain in my knee. It's not like doing this damaged it further. So that's a great positive. Then I went on to do calf raises. I have a new calf raise bar to do the raises off, which is massive. It's like 4 inches off the ground, which is much further than what I've been doing calf raises off, and it helped get a massive stretch on my calves, but I am using lighter weight for that. But the calf raises went very well. And then I end with a behind the back axle grip. So I'm trying to work on my grip just a little bit. I think if you have a really solid grip, it's great for deadlift. It allows you to explode into the deadlift without having to sort of slowly apply pressure, because often, even if your grip doesn't give out, like I haven't ever failed a deadlift on grip and my grip strength is pretty good, but I'm not able to put as much force in as if I had straps when I deadlift without straps, because my hands might give in if I try and suddenly explode the weight up. So I think getting the grip stronger is going to help with that. So I was just playing around with that, and that has fatigued my hands massively over the past few days. So those behind the back axle deadlifts are axle bar grips, not really deadlifts, but are an absolute killer, and I'm working on them for my deadlift. So on to the talking point of today. I'm going to talk to you about managing fatigue and DOMS. If you don't know what DOMS are, it's delayed onset muscle soreness, when you get really sore a few days after the gym. And I'm going to talk about CNS fatigue. So the first thing that I'm going to say when managing fatigue is you need to do a realistic training frequency. If you watch videos like mine and I'm in the gym 5 days a week, and you want to start the gym and you've gone from doing like no days per week in the gym or being relatively inactive, trying to go to train 5 times a week is far too much. Particularly, I train lower 3 times a week. That is way too much, and you are probably going to get very sore and run down very quickly. You might find that your strength actually starts decreasing just because you're so run down and fatigued. So I think a great starting point is 3 times a week. 3 full body sessions a week, or like 2 lower and 1 upper, is brilliant for most people. So I advise that you manage your training frequency if you're experiencing too much fatigue. The next thing to do is manage your overall volume. So that's leading on from frequency. It's how much you're doing in a session, or how much you're doing over the course of the week. If you're only training 3 times a week, like I've suggested, but you're doing 20 exercises for 3 sets each per session, that is far too much. As you'll see in all of my videos, I only do 2 sets per exercise on accessories, and I find that a great balance for me, where I can still push hard but not accumulate too much fatigue. When I was doing 3 sets per exercise, it was way too much for me. So I only do 4 accessories for 2 sets on each of my 3 lower days. That's only 24 sets in total for my lower body for all of those muscle groups throughout the period of a week. So even though I'm training 3 times a week, I'm managing my volume by only doing 2 sets on 4 accessories on each of the lower days. The next thing you need to manage and balance with your volume is your intensity. If you're going absolutely all out to failure all the time, that is obviously going to contribute to you being very fatigued. You are pushing your limits. Now, I absolutely believe in training to failure and high intensity training, and that's because that is giving your body a very clear signal to improve. The reason that you gain strength or muscle is because your body thinks, oh, there's no way I could do this training on a regular basis. It thinks you have to do that to survive. It's a survival adaptation, so it decides to get stronger because it needs to. So that is why training intensely is very important for making progress, but you have to balance this with your fatigue. If you're training so intensely that you're not recovering properly from that intensity, you're accumulating more fatigue from training really high intensity than you're able to recover from. That is not conducive in the long run, and is probably going to help contribute to you getting injured and being run down. So you have to manage how often you're training to failure and how hard you are training. Leading on from this, you need to build up to maxing out frequently. You will see that because I train the conjugate system, I do an upper max and a lower max variation every week, but I don't advise you suddenly start doing this. Maxing out can be hugely fatiguing to your CNS, your central nervous system. That is because you make massive neurological adaptations when you max out. You require all of your central nervous system to be firing, but that can lead you feeling really run down. You can almost have like flu-like symptoms from maxing out if you're not conditioned to it. So you should slowly build up your ability to max out regularly. And if you are feeling run down, you can pick lighter maxes. All maxes are not created even. For example, on the bench press, if I picked a board press, my board press max is 167.5 kilos, but my strict press max is only 90 kilos. That is a vastly different strain put on my body. Even though the strict press is still a max effort, 90 kilos is pretty easy for my CNS to recover from at this stage. So you can pick your max effort variations wisely if you are maxing out to help manage your CNS fatigue as well. The final two things that you need to do are, first of all, use deloads. Deloads are fantastic for recuperating both your muscular fatigue, your DOMS, and your CNS. So I've done an episode on deloads at the beginning of this week when I started this deload week. So if you want to go and check that out, you can see how I advise you do deload. And if you are really sore and have terrible DOMS, terrible muscle soreness, just go light, go easy, try and get blood around, and that can actually help reduce your DOMS. Ironically, if you are really sore and you go in and train really light, lots of high reps, you can actually feel less sore after training. So that is my advice for you, managing your fatigue and DOMS and your CNS fatigue. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of that good stuff, and have a great day.